Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. The transfer window has closed. It is deadline day. It's currently 7 minutes past 6. The transfer window slammed shut just over an hour ago and it was a pretty disappointing day for Evertonians. A very strange and surprising day, I'd say. We expected a lot more, obviously, after all of the manic news yesterday. We didn't quite get what we wanted. I was going to say deserved, and we probably didn't quite get what we deserved either today. However, there is a lot of news to talk about, of course, including one incoming signing and a couple of outgoings as well. I'm going to talk about Wilfried Zaha, of course, because it'd be rude of me not to. Got a really interesting quote from Paul Joyce to talk about, which probably hints at the fact of the reason as to why Wilfried Zaha didn't end up coming to Everton. Obviously, we're going to talk about Alex Iwobi. I want all of your opinions in the live comments and in the comment section of the stream as well. It'd be really interesting to hear what you guys have to say about the Arsenal winger, of course, who has agreed to sign for Everton for around £35 million. Is it a rush deal? Is it just a panic buy? Or is it an actually calculated buy by Marcel Brands? I'm going to go for the latter because I don't think Marcel Brands would panic buy everybody. I really do believe the fact that, we had a list of players lined up and he sort of worked his way down that list, and Alex Iwobi was one of those players. We're going to talk about Marcus Rojo as well, and we're also going to talk about all of the ins and all of the outs for this summer, and me give my opinion as to whether I believe it was a successful or an unsuccessful summer transfer window. Whiskey Ash says, much better the Iwobi deal than Zaha. 80 million is just too much for him in my opinion. Yeah, you know what, listen, I'm not going to sit here and lie. I really wanted Wilfried Zaha. I did. It got to a point, obviously, today and yesterday where I was thinking, I'm not really too bothered about the price now. I'm not too bothered about the money. I just want to get this deal done. Obviously, a really interesting quote from Paul Joyce that we're going to go into in a minute is to suggest that the club thought otherwise. But, it was disappointing. And I think today, overall, was disappointing. I think we'll start with it as an overall. Listen, I think the summer transfer window has actually been quite a success. I think we've improved our squad. I think we're in a much better position now than what we were at the end of last season. Granted, the centre-back situation is frustrating and we'll talk about it in a minute. However, today was frustrating. There's no denying that. There's no beating around the bush. I think other than today, the transfer window has been quite positive, but today really was negative. And I think it's the expectation that we all built up at the club, the expectation that we all built up in Brands and Silver, because obviously we sat here on Steam last night and we spoke about one of the busiest days in sort of transfer window history for Everton Football Club. Certainly in my lifetime, we were being linked with everybody left, right and centre. Zaha, Smalling, McCarthy was linked to a move away. Obviously Alex Iwobi was linked. We were linked with a plethora of players, and then it come to the day and you were really excited getting up this morning. You were thinking, right, another day of this and hopefully we can get some deals over the line, and it just wasn't quite like that. It was really quiet for the majority of the day, and it only really started to pick up around 2:30, 3 o'clock when sort of the Zaha deal broke that he wasn't going to sign for Everton, and then obviously 5 minutes before the transfer window when we agreed the deal with Arsenal for Alex Iwobi. So I just want to talk about today generically. Of course, I'll give my opinion on the whole transfer window a little bit later on when we talk about all of the ins and outs. However, today it was disappointing, let's be honest with you. I think, like I said, it's the expectation that you build up in yourself and the expectation that you build up in the club. We all went into the day, obviously, with the feeling that, we may be able to break a deal for Wilfried Zaha, obviously ending last night on him handing in a transfer request, on, some sources saying that Everton were readying up a better bid than ever to try and convince the player to come. Some sources even saying that Palace had admitted defeat and were willing to sell the player. Obviously, that all ended up to be complete, utter bullshit. We did hand in a transfer request, but the rest of it ended up to be complete, utter bullshit. So we were all quite excited going in today, and it really was disappointing. So we'll start with last night, really. Of course, like I said in yesterday's stream, I'm more than likely going to end that stream and there's going to be information straight after. There was James McCarthy joined Crystal Palace last night around 11:15, so the transfers didn't stop even throughout the night. James McCarthy was announced by Crystal Palace as a Crystal Palace player. Now, BBC reported the deal was worth around 3 million, whereas Sky reported the deal was worth around 8 million. So we don't really know yet. Anywhere between 3 and 8 million, I'd say James McCarthy has been sold for. Obviously, we done a little bit on him in yesterday's team, so I'll touch on him again. I think he's a decent player. I think his Everton career has been hindered by injury, and when he's fit and when he's capable of playing, he is a really good player. He'll always give it 100% for the shirt. He'll always work his arse off, and he'll always obviously fight until the end. So I think it's a really good deal for Crystal Palace. Whether it's 3 or whether it's 8, it's less than £10 million, and that for me is astonishing in this day and age, really, for a footballer of McCarthy's quality when he stays fit. So that was what happened last night. Obviously, we started this morning knowing that James McCarthy was going to join Crystal Palace. We were all optimistic. We thought maybe that would have some sort of involvement in the Wilfried Zaha deal, and I don't mean physical involvement in terms of it be part of the deal. I mean, in building that relationship with Crystal Palace. Obviously, it was much more different today, as we've seen. Malcolm says, did we get Reinier Jesus? No, we didn't. However, the Reinier Jesus deal is a little bit of a strange one, because even if we did agree a deal for him, he wouldn't be able to sign until January anyway because of his age. So we've still got plenty of time to make that deal happen. We could get it done in January. We could get it done next summer. If he was to sign now anyway, we wouldn't be seeing him in first team action, at least probably until next season. So, but we didn't. To answer your question boldly, we didn't get a deal for him done. Whiskey says defender 1 is a loss. Definitely needed a defender. Yet we're going to talk about the centre back situation in just a moment, because it is quite worrying, and it's the only big negative I'd say out of this transfer window. Listen, not getting Wilfried Zaha was a bummer, obviously, after all of the rumours, after all of the talk over the last few days. However, not getting a centre back for me is sort of the biggest issue that we've had to deal with this summer, and it's something that I definitely think Marco Silva and Marcel Brand should have prioritised a little bit more than they have. However, I still don't think that makes it a bad transfer window. Good Soul says Zaha would have been a statement signing, but all in the whole window has been a step in the right direction. Exactly. Whiskey says good deal for him, needs football as well. Down the pecking order. Yep, I agree. Good Soul says built up so much it seems like an anticlimax. Would have been annoying paying 25. Would have been annoyed to paying 25 million for Rojo. He is injury prone and worth no more than 10. Yet we'll go into Marcus Rojo in just a minute as well. Mike says button with the Iwobi signing brings a lot of creativity. Also, we can work on his decision making and end product, and then he'll be a great signing. I actually agree with you. I do. Hashtag Heyman says Arsenal fan here. I think Iwobi is a great signing for Everton. A lot of Arsenal fans are good that he's leaving. He'll be a big player for you. I also agree, and we'll go into talking about Alex Iwobi now, because it is the biggest bit of news from today, really. There's nothing else that we've had to discuss. There was bits and bobs around Marcus Rojo earlier on today. If you didn't know anything about that, basically the first sort of transfer rumour to be linked to Everton Football Club was that we were interested in a move for Manchester United defender Marcus Rojo. He was having talks at Carrington, which is Manchester United's training ground, today, about a potential move to Everton Football Club. Apparently, Everton wanted a loan deal for the player for the entirety of the season, whereas Manchester United want to sell him, and they put a £25 million price tag on him. We believe that Everton walked away from the deal as soon as they realised the price tag was so high. But anyway, Alex Iwobi, moving on to Alex Iwobi, of course, like I said, the only real solid thing to come out of today's transfer deadline day, something that I didn't think I'd be saying yesterday. However, with 5 minutes to go before the deals had to be agreed at 5 p.m, Everton had bid and had a bid accepted of £35 million for Arsenal winger Alex Iwobi. Now, obviously, a lot of people jumped on this on social media, a lot of people jumped on this on Twitter, and I want to give my opinions briefly, and I want your opinions as well in the comment section down below. Listen, just off the bat, I actually think, and I do believe this, I understand where fans are coming from when they say they're a little bit disappointed to obviously have Alex Iwobi joining the club when we were linked with players like Wilfried Zaha. I understand that. However, if you were to take Wilfried Zaha out of the situation, and this quote from Paul Joyce is really, really massive that we're going to talk about in a minute, if we'd have known what we now know 3 days ago, then I honestly think we'll be a little bit more excited about the Alex Iwobi signing. I think Alex Iwobi is a good player. Obviously, it's half the price as what Wilfried Zaha would have cost us, so financially it's better in that way. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I'm not going to sit here and blow whatever the saying is, water under the tube, or whatever the saying is, you know what I'm talking about. I would have preferred Wilfried Zaha. I think he's more of a statement signing. I think he is a better player, and I think he has got the ability to take us to that next level and give us the chance to break into that top 4, not just the top 6, but challenge for that top 4 as well. I'm not too sure whether Alex Iwobi has them qualities yet. However, I still think he's a good player. He's a creative player. He's only 23 years old. He scored some fantastic goals for Arsenal, and we've seen obviously him come to Goodison Park last season, or the season before last, when they beat us, and he absolutely ran the show. He tore us to bits, so we know he's a good player. He is a little bit frustrating at times, like I said. Whether he's worth the £35 million price tag, we don't know. Again, I don't believe it was a rushed last minute sort of signing to just get a deal done, but I do think the price tag may be a little bit too inflated. However, in this day and age, is 35 million that much? I don't know. Obviously, Crystal Palace were wanting more than double that for Wilfried Zaha, who, you know, is significantly older as well. So I just want to get one thing straight. I would have rather have had Wilfried Zaha. I'm not going to lie. I'd have been more excited by Wilfried Zaha. I think he'd have been more of a statement signing, and not just the marketing reasons, the excitement throughout the fans. I think Wilfried Zaha would have offered us more to the first team. I think he's got the quality, like I said, to be that statement player, to be that player that takes us to the next level. I'm not too sure whether Alex Iwobi has that quality. However, I still like Alex Iwobi. I think he's a decent player, and I think he could come in and genuinely, he gives something to Everton Football Club. Let's be honest, he's an attacking player. He's very, very creative. He can't only play on the wing, but he can also play in the number 8. He can play in the number 10 role as well. And I think the reason as to why fans are a little bit deflated and a little bit with the Alex Iwobi signing is because we all built our hopes up for a Wilfried Zaha signing, and when you sort of put the 2 and 2 together, it's quite clear that, you know, we as a fan base would rather have taken Wilfried Zaha. However, it became impossible to sign Wilfried Zaha because of the demands that Crystal Palace wanted. It was released yesterday that we were after Iwobi in addition to Zaha as well, so it's not like the club have brought Iwobi in instead of Zaha. However, I understand that it feels like that, but of course that is the biggest news coming out of the transfer deadline day today, is that Everton have agreed a deal with Arsenal for the signing of attacker Alex Iwobi. It'll be worth around £35 million. The deal sheet was submitted before 5 p.m, which now means we have until 7 p.m, so in about 40 minutes, to get the player registered as an Everton player with the Premier League, and then things like medicals, personal terms, all those bits and bobs can be sorted overnight and into tomorrow as well. So as long as we've got it registered as an Everton player, which, you know, a lot of sources, the BBC claiming that they're really confident that that'll happen, then he will be an Everton player going forward. Let me know your thoughts on that one in the comment section down below. Are you excited about Alex Iwobi? Are you disappointed because, you know, you wanted Wilfried Zaha and we've ended up with Iwobi? Let me know your thoughts, of course. I'm just going to tweet today's team out so everybody on Twitter knows we are live. If you're not enjoying this team so far, 33 people watching so far, please do hit that like button. It would mean an absolute massive amount to me. What are your thoughts on the transfer window as a whole? Of course, I understand that I was going to say 99%, but probably 100% of us are a little bit disappointed about today because we expected so much because of how positive yesterday was, because of the rumours that were flying around yesterday. However, when saying that, when you look at the transfer window as a whole, I think barring the centre-back issue, which we'll go on to talk about, I think it's been a decent transfer window, and being perfectly honest, we've brought in a striker, which was a player we desperately needed. We've brought in cover for Seamus Coleman, which was desperately needed, and we've also brought in a midfielder, a replacement for Zaha, which we knew we were going to need anyway. Diving back into the live comments now. Where were we up to? Rabbi says, what do you think about Zaha? It's disappointing. It is disappointing. I think Evertonians built our own hope up, really, as well as obviously Sky and plenty of other in-the-know sources that claim that we were agreed a deal and stuff like that. It's disappointing, of course it is, because we went into today expecting some movement on Wilfried Zaha. We've spent, you know, a lot of us have spent the entire day refreshing Twitter every 2 seconds, looking on Sky and realising that not much was going on with that transfer. And, you know, I understand the frustration. I think, you know, it almost feels like, you know, Wilfried Zaha has been on the way to Everton. You know, it was rumoured to be, you know, driving down to Everton or on his way to Finch Farm, and he's suddenly had a change of mind. It's not like that at all. We just have had nothing all day until around 3 o'clock when Roy Hodgson come out and said he's not leaving the football club. The only bits of information we had to go off was that he didn't train today with Crystal Palace. He was only at the training ground for around 15 minutes, and obviously we later found out that was because Hodgson gave him the rest of the day off because his head wasn't there. So yeah, massively disappointed, of course, that we didn't get the deal done for the player. However, you know, like I said, it's the own hype. It's the sort of, it's the what's the saying called? It's the hope that kills you, and that's what it is with Evertonians. Pretty much throughout my life of being an Evertonian, and definitely at this moment as well. If you're enjoying today's team, by the way, please do leave a like. It would mean an absolute massive amount to me. And if you're new to the channel as well, hit the subscribe button. Why not? We've just hit 650 subscribers, so a massive thank you to everybody for that one. We've got a long stream ahead, of course, talking about the transfer window as a whole and talking about today's disappointing, I suppose, end to it, realistically. realistically. Where are we? Hashtag Heyman says, why didn't Everton go for Callum Chambers instead of Marcus Rojo? Arsenal would have been open to selling him. He's much younger than Rojo and could potentially be an English starter. Good point. I'm not too sure. Hashtag says, Heyman says, Chambers was Fulham's player of the season last season too. I don't know. Maybe Marcel Brands had Callum Chambers on his list, but he was confident of getting a deal done for Rojo, so he decided to just, skip past Callum Chambers. I'm not too sure. Maybe he didn't fancy him at all. Mikey says, think Iwobi could be brilliant in a 4-3-3 playing in midfield. Yeah, you know what? I feel a little bit sorry on Alex Iwobi. I really, really do, because obviously he's a young player, 23 years old. He's coming into Everton Football Club. We knew we needed another attacking player. We knew we needed more quality. We needed more creativity, and listen, Alex Iwobi offers us that. Whether he's better than Richarlison, I wouldn't say he is. Whether he's better than Bernard, that's up for argument as well. I definitely think he's better than Kevin Morales, Yannick Bolasie, Theo Walcott as well. So he offers us a little something different. He offers us creativity, and I genuinely think that if the Zaha deal wasn't a thing, if we had never been linked with Zaha, a lot of Evertonians have been happy with Alex Iwobi. A lot of Evertonians have been open to having Alex Iwobi at the football club. I think the most important thing that we need to do as a fan base now is understand that the reason as to why we haven't signed Wilfred Zaha this summer isn't because of Alex Iwobi, and it's not his fault that deal hasn't gone through. So we need to back him, we need to get behind him, and we need to support him, exactly like we've done with Moise Keane, exactly like we've done with Jean-Philippe Gbamin as well, because I genuinely think he's got qualities that he can bring to this squad. Yes, he's not as good as Wilfred Zaha in my opinion. He's not good enough at the minute to take us to that next level, which we were all excited about. However, it doesn't mean that he doesn't offer anything to the football club. Rabbi says, what do you think about us going for Marcus Rojo when people were saying we were linked with Smalling? We were heavily linked with Marcus Rojo last summer, and we were very, very close to signing him. Manchester United pulled the plug about 20 minutes before the end of the transfer window, so it doesn't surprise me that we went for him again. I think it was the right decision to pull out of that move. I don't think he's worth 25 million. I don't think he'd be here for long enough to warrant that price tag, and obviously Manchester United weren't willing to loan him out as well. Good Soul says, Iwobi signing feels a little bit meh, but could prove to be a great signing. Maybe not the instant impact that Zaha will bring. Yeah, I agree, 100%. Mikey says, the difference is with Iwobi, he can probably break us into the top 6. Zaha will break us into the top 4. I agree with that. I do agree. I think that's spot on. I think there is a different level. It's a different level of player. It's a different level of class. And I think Zaha has got the capability to break us into that top 4, whereas Iwobi might only get us into a top 6 place. However, we don't know that yet. We don't know that Moise Keane won't bring an awful lot of quality as to help us challenge for that top 4. I think the most important thing is that Wilfred Zaha isn't an Everton player and isn't going to be an Everton player, and Alex Iwobi more than likely is. So let's get behind him now. Let's get behind the rest of the team, and let's look forward, obviously, to Saturday. I'm still really, really positive. I've seen a lot of negativity on Twitter today, and I'm quite surprised by it. A lot of negativity, considering that, we were really, really positive going into today. I personally believe that we were positive not only because there was a chance of signing Wilfred Zaha, not only because there was a chance of signing Kurt Zouma, but because we were genuinely happy with the signings we'd made. We've signed one of the best young strikers in the world. We've brought in a fantastic replacement for Idrissa Gana Gueye. By all accounts, we've brought in a World Cup winner as a backup right back. And it turns out that fans were, a lot of fans seem to have only been excited at the prospect of bringing in the likes of a Wilfred Zaha, and that's understandable, but I don't think the fact that we haven't brought him in makes it a bad transfer window. That's just my opinion anyway. Of course, let me know yours in the comment section down below. Whiskey Ash says, he has done well for Arsenal when came on as a sub. We'll probably get him for cheaper in January when Zaha is even more pissed off. Yeah, Wilfred Zaha isn't happy at the minute. That's very, very clear. He isn't happy. He was promised that he would get his move if a substantial amount of money came in, and he's obviously not very happy with that. Mitchell says, I'm happy with the transfers. Fair enough, as am I. I'm not too happy about the centre-back situation. We'll talk about that soon. Dan says, today Zaha, Bernard, Iwobi. In 3 years, Iwobi, Bernard, Zaha. I'm not too sure about that one. We'd have to sign Zaha first. Whiskey says, same here, Michael. Just saying the centre-back was not sorted. Pennington going out on loan also leaves us a little tight at centre-back. It certainly does leave us a little light, sorry. B. Orkub says, I'm an Arsenal fan. You're getting a good player. Thank you very much. From all the Arsenal fans that I've spoken to on Twitter and in the live comments here, it seems like they all quite rate Iwobi. Mikey says, we were confident on Zouma, so we were all... all we do was go down Manchester United's pecking order, Small and Rojo. We were confident on Zouma, and I think it's really important to remember that Kurt Zouma wanted to move to Everton Football Club, and Chelsea wanted to sell Kurt Zouma up until Frank Lampard come in and decided that Kurt Zouma wasn't for sale. And it wasn't just that moment either. Zouma still wanted to move, and Chelsea was still entertaining a move for Kurt Zouma, and that it then became pretty much impossible when David Luiz was moving last night, and he basically refused to sign, and that was when they said, well, Zuma's going to be our number one centre half, and you're not signing Tamari either because he's going to be fourth choice. So that was a little bit of a difficult situation. However, we should have had somebody, like I said, if Marcel Brands has got a list of players and he's going down the pecking order, he should have been able to guarantee that we bring at least one of those in. Hashtag Heyman says, who do you think is going to finish in the top 4 this season? I think Everton are going to surprise a lot of people. I hope so. City, Spurs, Liverpool, and I don't know. Let's just say Chelsea for now. I don't know. But I still think we could genuinely push it. I think Zaha would have pretty much confirmed that we were going to push, but I still think that with the right players, obviously with the right system, I still think we've got a chance of pushing it. However, obviously that chance is a little bit less now that we haven't brought in a player like Wilfried Zaha. Where are we? Hashtag Whiskey says, hashtag 5 games are going to go a long way to answering that regarding the teams we are playing in those games. Yet spot on. Rabbi says, do you think Rojo would have been like Funes Mori and flopped? I think Rojo would have been a decent backup centre-back. I don't think he'd have been a fantastic first choice. I didn't want him because of that. I didn't think he was good enough to be a first choice. However, I think he'd have been an alright centre-back if we'd have brought him in on loan, not somebody to bring in for £25 million. Ian says, great window in my opinion. Fair enough. Thank you very much for that. Simon says, we're not going to be doing F all this season now, maybe 6th if lucky, same old shit. Fair enough, a lot of Evertonians are a little bit disappointed with this transfer window, and that's completely fair enough. Like I said, I think it's, in my opinion, Wilfried Zaha is a better player than Alex Iwobi and would have offered us more. Doesn't mean that Alex Iwobi won't offer us anything though, when he's not a decent player, because I genuinely think he is. Can't think of enough names. It should be announced tonight. Iwobi had his medical and agreed personal terms. Get in, Blues buzzing. Yeah, exactly. BBC are reporting that they are confident that the deal will be done before 7 p.m. And then it's just about, getting him over and doing the fancy announcements and stuff like that as well. So anyway, moving on from Alex Iwobi, because I'm aware there's a lot of negativity on social media, and I'm aware that a lot of fans are sort of comparing that transfer to the Wilfried Zaha transfer, and Alex Iwobi's getting a little bit of the brunt of it, and that's not what you want to see for a player coming into the football club. Obviously, it's not his fault we haven't signed Wilfried Zaha. He is coming in to try and improve his career, and he is coming in to try and prove a lot of people wrong. So let's get behind him, and let's hope that he feels like he's got the support of all of us, exactly like Moise Keane knows he's got the support, exactly like Jean-Philippe Gbamin knew he's got the support as well. Anyway, moving on to Wilfried Zaha now, because I think it's really, really important that we talk about him. Obviously, it'd be rude to not talk about him, especially considering he's been the topic of conversation for the last 3 days. So firstly, off the bat, of course, we all know this, Wilfried Zaha is staying at Crystal Palace at least for the next few months, at least until the January transfer window. Of course, Evertonians going into today believing that we may be able to get a deal done for the player. It was really, really quiet. In fact, there was nothing until around 3 o'clock, nothing official anyway, until around 3 o'clock, when Palace manager Roy Hodgson come out and said that he was going to stay. He also said that he wasn't happy at the fact he was going to stay. He said that we all knew that he openly wanted to move. However, he's a top professional and he should get his head down and work his ass off, basically. Now, I think something to really, really, really look into when you're looking at this transfer is a quote from Paul Joyce, and I'm going to read it out now. So, bearing in mind Wilfried Zaha stays at Crystal Palace, a lot of Evertonians very upset with this one. A lot of Evertonians blaming the football club, blaming Brands to say typical Everton, can't get a deal done, should have just given them the money. Only Everton can have a player put in a transfer request to join the club and then not put in another bid. I think this is a really, really interesting point. Paul Joyce tweeted out just after the deal for Alex Iwobi was agreed, and he said Everton only made one bid for Wilfried Zaha, and that was rejected on July the 28th. And if we were to make a second bid, we would have only gone up to £60 million, and Palace wanted more anyway. So, having known this now, of course, that is disappointing, given the fact that Wilfried Zaha put in a transfer request, given the fact that Wilfried Zaha badly wanted to to join Everton Football Club, so it seems. However, if we'd have known this on the 28th of July, the 29th of July, before this started to pick up a little bit of steam, I don't think we'd have been that sort of frustrated by it. Of course, if Everton, if the club, or if, you know, one of these journalists that Sky Sports that seem to know everything, you know, and they just chat shit, had to come out on the 29th of July and said, listen, Everton have had one bid rejected for Wilfried Zaha, and they believe that's the end of it. They're not going to go in with anything more because they don't believe the player is worth that. I think a lot of Evertonians are gone, oh, well, you know, so-and-so's gone for this amount of money, but after a couple of days, they're gone, you know what, fair enough, it is what it is. Maybe he's not worth that amount of money. Whereas, because the story is sort of, you know, it's got more steam over the last couple of days, fans are starting to think that we've backed out of a deal when the player has put in a transfer request. I think it's become very, very apparent over the last 24, 48 hours that Wilfried Zaha just wanted to leave Crystal Palace. He wanted to get out. He wanted to make sure that he wasn't a Crystal Palace player next year. And I think, given this quote from Paul Joyce, it's become clear now that that wasn't necessarily to be an Everton player. It was just to be out of Crystal Palace and to move on. Now, of course, I dare say he wanted to join Everton. I dare say Everton were the club that he had his eyes set on. However, it's interesting that Joyce has come out and said that we only ever bid once for him, and after that we weren't interested. Now, of course, the club come out and denied the second bid last week after Sky Sports reported that we'd made a second bid, including 2 players. The club did come out and, as part of that statement, said this is the end of the dealings. Now, fans chose to believe that for, you know, a couple of days, and then decided to say, well, you know, maybe that's just Brands playing games and trying to get in Palace's head. And maybe it was, and maybe this quote from Joyce is, I dare say it's true, but maybe it's the club trying to cover the backwind of, you know, maybe they've, I don't know, informally made bids for him or informally had conversations with Palace and not actually put in a solid bid. However, it's something to listen to, it's something to look at, it's really, really interesting. So, according to Paul Joyce, Everton only made one bid for Wilfried Zaha, and that was rejected on July the 28th, and that was the bid of £52 million. We would have only increased it to £60 million, and Palace would have rejected that anyway, so we didn't bother. So, of course, really, really interesting. Like I said, I think you know, obviously we've been getting excited about the signing of Wilfried Zaha. I think, like you said, Wilfried Zaha desperately wanted the move. He wanted to leave Crystal Palace, and, you know, Everton were the last club to sort of be really, really involved in him and interested in him, and I think that's why the links have been sort of put together. Don't get me wrong, that's not me saying after the 28th of July we didn't want him and we weren't interested whatsoever, and, you know, everything else has been bullshit, because we may well have been. Brands may well have had informal conversations. He may well have spoken to Palace, but not put in a formal bid. But, you know, I think the difference is, you know, I've seen a lot of people comparing this to the Dembele situation a few years ago when we'd agreed a deal for Moussa Dembele and he was on his way to Finch Farm. However, he decided to turn round on the motorway and sign for Spurs instead. And I think it's a little bit different. The difference is with this transfer is, from what we know at the minute, Wilfried Zaha wanted to join Everton. He put in a transfer request to force a move to Everton. He didn't turn round halfway through his way to Finch Farm and say, I don't want to join you anymore, I want to go to a different club. It's just that Crystal Palace have been so difficult to deal with this summer, and like I said, I don't give a shit about Crystal Palace. I don't care where they finish in the league, but it is understandable to realise as to why they've been so difficult to deal with this summer, because in my opinion, Wilfried Zaha is the difference between them finishing in the top, you know, 10 and then being relegated. I honestly think without Wilfried Zaha's goals and assists, they would be a championship club, and I believe that, I really, really do. So it is understandable. It's interesting, obviously, the quote from Paul Joyce. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments section down below. If you're enjoying today's stream, please do leave a like. It really, really does mean a massive amount to me. Nearly 50 people in the live chat at the minute. Let me know your thoughts on everything that's gone on today. It would really, really mean a massive amount to me if you got involved. If you haven't already as well, please do hit the subscribe button. So close to 700 subscribers, just hit 650, so a massive thank you for all of that. Bob says, you're right, Cameron, what you're saying about Zaha, it is pure psychology. Had we not been linked with Zaha, Iwobi would seem good business. Yeah, I do genuinely believe that. I do agree. Now, there's some fans that don't rate Iwobi and don't believe he's a decent player, and that's fair enough. However, I think we'd have taken to him a lot quicker if the Zaha situation wouldn't have been a thing. Rabbi says, feel if we push for this season we could get 4th or 5th. I still agree, I do. Good Soul says, a season and pushing into the top 6 with a fall of keeping our centre-backs fit and injury free till at least Christmas. Yes, and that's a situation we're going to move on to in just a second. Darren says, alright Cam, doing a great job as usual. Thank you very much, Darren, I really, really do appreciate that one. Do you think because of the exciting transfer windows, the players will want to give their all and keep their place in the squad? I do. I think, a lot of players have got, a lot to prove now, and even the likes of, Bernard, the likes of Theo Walcott, they'll have known that we were interested in Wilfried Zaha. We mightn't have got that transfer done, but they'll have known that we were interested in bringing a wide player in, so they're going to have to work their absolute bollocks off between now and January to make sure that Marco Silva can look at them and go, you know what, we don't actually need a wide player, these are good enough. Same with Gylfi Sigurdsson, obviously bringing in Alex Iwobi. Simon says, what colour is our third kit going to be? We don't know officially yet. There's been a couple of leaks that it's, a dark blue / black with a little bit of a lighter blue detail on it, which actually looks really, really smart, but there's nothing official yet. Mark McSweeney says, get behind him. Good luck, Alex. Thank you very much for that one. We all will. Lavovich says, I was never 100% about Zaha's character on a number of levels. Your opinion's somewhat mine. Fair enough. Simon says, it's great the way you give the time to read every comment out. It's top. That's why your channel is boss, because you're bringing everyone together in the conversation. Thank you very much. That's something I always love to do, and I always will do it. This isn't just a channel for me. This isn't Cameron's channel. It's the Mighty Blues. It's an Everton fan channel. It's about Everton fans' opinions. It's about everybody's opinion on, the situations that we're doing, and that's why I absolutely love doing live streams, because everybody can get involved. Everybody can join in the conversation, and I'll always read the comments out, because it's important that I read everybody's opinions out, because this it's a conversation. It's not just me giving my opinions. Gary says, Everton fans, trust me, Iwobi's a good player and has potential to improve. It's a good deal for Everton. Also, he is a number 10, not a left winger. Arsenal never played him in his proper position. Fair enough, and at the end of the day, although Gylfi Sigurdsson had a fantastic season last season, although he provided a lot of goals and assists for the club, we have been crying out for a more creative player to play in that position. So, positive news for me. Craig says, thank you Everton for giving Arsenal 40 mil for Iwobi. There's a little bit of a different opinion, of course. There was always going to be different opinions. Robbie says, what do you think about Coleman and Sidibe, as Coleman is a skipper? I think Sidibe is coming as competition, as cover. However, I think he could have the qualities to take over Coleman eventually, and this will mean that Coleman has to step everything up a level. He has to step his performances up, he has to step it all up a level, and he has to start this season on the front foot. Seamus Coleman, he started poorly last season. There's no room for that now, because we've got a World Cup winner who's ready to come in and take his place. So I think it ups the level of Seamus Coleman, and internally ups the level of the rest of the team as well. Lavovich says, players start at Palace, goes to United, returns to Palace. If he'd gone to Everton, would we be a stepping stone? I don't know. I suppose you could bring that argument in for Moise Keane. You could bring that argument in for a couple of players that have signed this summer. I think if he'd have come to Everton, he would have given us enough to take us to at least that top 6, if not challenging for that top 4. And if we were a Champions League club, then, would he really have much of an excuse to move? Mikey says, to be honest, it's the hope that kills you. It definitely is, mate. John says, can't see a like or subscribe button. Strange, you should be able to. It should just be below me there. The subscribe button should be, if you're watching on a mobile, it should be on your right. The like button should be on your left above it. You should be able to see it. It should just be under the video. I'm not too sure why you can't. Lavovich says, if we never got fourth, would Zaha jump ship? I don't know. Maybe he would. It depends what type of bid come in for him. Anthony says, hi Cam, you muppet. When you coming back to footy with the kids? One player was a top-class centre-half. Liverpool proved that last year. Keenan Mina, really not sure. That sounds really, really odd. That's my cousin that I go insane with him and his daughter's team. So that doesn't sound like it maybe should. Soon, hopefully, I need to get back in the gym though, because I'm really not fit. And I agree. Listen, it's going to take again, Michael Keane and Yerry Mina have got a lot to prove this season. They have a lot to prove, and they're going to have to step up their game as well, and hopefully stay fit. Fingers crossed. Pastor of Muppet says, is Everton team to play Palace stronger than the end of last season? I think it is. The starting 11 mightn't be, but when you look at the squad as a whole, you'll probably have Moise Keane on the bench at least. You'll have Gabaman on the bench at least. You'll have Sidibe on the bench. So I do believe it's stronger. I do, and I believe we have strengthened. However, the centre back situation is an issue, and we'll talk about it in a minute. Mikey says Sidibe will push Coleman. I agree. Goodsoul says thought Palace would have been interested in Walcott as part of the deal. With Zaha, as they would have needed a winger at the 11th hour. Maybe I believe Palace were offered, as a few players, and they turned them down outright. We know obviously they were, potentially offered Cenk Tosun, potentially offered James McCarthy as well as part, and they turned them down, and then went to sign James McCarthy separately. So I think Palace have just been notoriously hard to deal with this transfer window, if I'm being honest with you. Dex says, Iwobi won't come to Everton. Well, that's a difficult one because we've agreed a deal to sign him and the deal looks like it's going through. And Goodsall says, or Balassi. Yeah, if we could have shipped Balassi off to Palace, that would have been a fantastic deal as well. Simon says, maybe this will make Holgate this season. So let's get behind the team and give him our full support. Exactly, and that's exactly what we need to do now. The deal's done, the window's shut. We haven't signed Wilfried Zaha, so let's get behind the team now. Let's get behind them going into the opening day of the season on Saturday afternoon. And we still should be excited about the season. We were excited yesterday, so why shouldn't we be excited today? Because we haven't signed Wilfried Zaha for 80 million. Whatever, it is what it is, innit? Move on. It's not the end of the world. It's disappointing, but it's not the end of the world. Anyway, moving on now to centre halves. Of course, this is my biggest qualm of the transfer window. This is my biggest qualm of today, and this is the only real frustration I have with Marco Silva and Marcel Brands about this transfer window. Obviously, we were well aware that we needed a centre-half coming into today. We were well aware it was going to be difficult to make a deal for Kurt Zouma to happen because obviously all the stuff yesterday about David Luiz. It then became apparent that we weren't going to make a deal for young Chelsea defender Fikayo Tomori as well. Again, because of the David Luiz situation, Kurt Zouma becomes one of their starting two centre-backs and Tomori becomes one of their backup centre-backs as well. So we had pretty much a 24-hour period there to go out and sign a centre-half. Now, the only real bit of information about today, other than the Iwobi transfer, was that we were in talks to sign Marcus Rojo. It was leaked earlier this morning that he was having talks at Carrington, which is Manchester United's training ground, to potentially move to Everton Football Club. Now, this deal became a no-go straight away as soon as Manchester United revealed that they wanted £25 million for the player and they were only willing to sell him on a permanent deal. Everton only wanted to take him on loan, and that's understandable for me. I don't think he's worth £25 million. And I don't think he'd be at Everton for longer than 12 to 24 months really. So £25 million for a player that you would eventually lose money on and isn't going to be here that long, obviously isn't decent business. Obviously we backed out of that one. We seemingly backed out of that one sort of mid-afternoonish, and then we didn't really appear to be interested in any other centre half. Now this troubles me, as well as the fact that just before the transfer window ended, about 10 minutes before the end of the window, Matthew Pennington joined Hull on loan for the season as well. And listen, this is the one big negative I'd have about the transfer window. Obviously, it's disappointing that we haven't signed Kurt Zouma. It's disappointing that we haven't brought Wilfried Zaha in. But the one issue that I have with this transfer window, the one issue I have with Marcel Brands and Marco Silva, is we haven't brought in a centre-half. We haven't replaced Kurt Zouma. We haven't replaced Phil Jagielka either. We've now loaned out Matthew Pennington. We've released Ashley Williams, who wouldn't get anywhere near the team anyway, but nevertheless, we've released Phil Jagielka, and obviously we haven't stuck a deal for Marcus Rojo or Chris Smalling, and that leaves us with Yerry Mina and Michael Keane as our only two centre-half. Now, given the fact that Yerry Mina spent the majority of his first season in the Premier League injured, because obviously he struggled with injury through last season, that worries me. It really, really does worry me. Other than them, we've got Mason Holgate, who of course spent a year out on loan playing right back, and it's not clear as to whether Marco Silva sees him as a centre-half. We've got Jean-Philippe Gbamin, who can play as a centre-half, however, was brought in as a central midfielder, so that's not ideal. And then we're looking at the likes of Morgan Feeney and Lewis Gibson and players in the under-23s, etc. So we've left ourselves really, really, really short at centre-half this season, and I think it's something that Marco Silva and Marcel Brands should have prioritised a little bit more. Now, don't get me wrong, we needed the right winger, we needed an attacking player. Obviously, we spent a lot of time on the Wilfried Zaha situation, we spent a lot of time on Alex Iwobi. However, what did we need more? And I'm putting this question out to you guys. I'm going to answer this question myself. What did we need more? A centre-half or a winger? For me, it's a centre-half. At the end of the day, if we wouldn't have brought Alex Iwobi in, if we wouldn't have had the debacle with Wilfried Zaha, we still have Bernard, we still have Richarlison, we still have Calvert-Lewin, we still have Moise Keane. All of those players can play across those three positions. Now we've only got Michael Keane and Yerry Mina to play at centre-half, realistically. Otherwise, you're bringing in young players that haven't really got the experience. Players like Mason Holgate, who for me aren't Premier League level centre-half. The positioning of the lad for me isn't good enough. Or you're trying to mould a midfielder into playing centre-half. And I know Jean-Philippe Gbamin's played there before. I know he's probably used to playing there. However, he has been brought in as an Idrissa Gana Gueye replacement. And for me, he should be playing in central midfield as the number 6, as a defensive midfielder. We shouldn't have to rely on, a central midfielder to take up a position as centre-half. Now, Marco Silva might have brought Gbamin in to be both. He might have brought him in to be a centre midfielder and a centre half if needed. It's strange that we haven't made a real push for a centre half in the last 24 hours of the transfer window. I think it become quite apparent to the club that Tamari wasn't going to happen. I think it become quite apparent to the club that Kurt Zouma wasn't going to happen either. So it really is strange that we didn't go for full balls to the wall to sign a centre half today. It worries me. It really does. Like I said, I'm a bit disappointed in the Zaha situation. I'm happy that Alex Iwobi is signing. However, I am frustrated. I can't lie. I'm really frustrated about today at a whole. But my biggest frustration about this transfer window, and the only reason as to why I could say it's maybe max a 7 out of 10 if you're going to rate it, is because we haven't replaced Kurt Zouma, such an important centre-half to us last season, such an important part of our team, especially towards the last 10 weeks of the season. If we couldn't have brought him in, we should have been looking elsewhere. PSG have got around 7 centre-backs. Obviously, they're only going to play with 2 or 3 maximum. You would have thought that maybe we'd have had a conversation with them, especially considering the relationship we have after obviously the Adesanya Gate transfer. Barcelona have got Samuel Umtiti, who they were looking to offload on loan, but we didn't go after any of these players. Marco Silva and Marcel Brands seemed like their attention was just focused on attacking players and they weren't really focusing on centre-halves. And for me, that is a little bit of a worry, considering the fact that Yerry Mina has spent the first part of his Everton career out injured, the majority of it out injured. And obviously Michael Keane has had his fair share of injuries as well. It is a little bit worrying, considering the fact that we're going into playing our first Premier League game on Saturday, and if one of those two gets a knock against Crystal Palace, we could be in deep shit. We could be having to promote the likes of a Lewis Gibson or a Morgan Feeney to the first team, and that is a pressure that those type of players don't need. You don't want an under-23 player. You don't want an under-23 player coming in when they need to come in and there's all that pressure on them. You want to be able to bread them in when there's an opportunity to bring them in and take them out. You don't want a Morgan Feeney to have to come in and start 6 or 7 Premier League games on the bounce because we've got nobody else. So I am disappointed on that part. That is my only real big disappointment for the transfer window. Obviously, the Zaha situation's a bit shit, but my only real negative and I don't want to say anger, but upset, I suppose, I'd sort of have towards Marcel Brands and Silva this season is that we didn't replace, Kurt Zouma, and we let Phil Jagielka go out without having a replacement lined up. Phil Jagielka probably wasn't going to get much game time this year. He probably wanted a little bit more first team football. However, if we didn't have a replacement lined up and if we weren't completely sure that we were going to be able to replace him, we shouldn't have let him go, in my opinion. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on that one. Where are we? Rabbi says, are you going to get a season ticket this year? I've got one. It has arrived. I'll be going to all the home games this season. John says, found it. You can't see the like or subscribe if you have people's comments in view. Have liked and subscribed. I didn't know that, but thank you very much. If you're enjoying the stream so far, by the way, please do hit the like button. Really does mean a massive amount to me. 37 people in. If we could hit 20 likes before we end the stream, that would be absolutely magnificent. And if you haven't already, please do hit the subscribe button as well. Pastor of Muppet says, will Everton finish 7th, 8th or 9th this season? I'm going to go, if you're giving me those options, 7th. If you're giving me more options, I'm going to say 6th. I'm going to be optimistic. Dex says, if Iwobi goes, or 5th, I'd say, let's be real optimistic. Dex says, if Iwobi goes to Everton, Arsenal will laugh all the way to the bank. A winger that can't cross. Feel sorry for Everton, he is worth 17 million max. Again, another Arsenal player who doesn't really seem to rate Iwobi. It's weird because we've had Arsenal players coming in saying, you've got a fantastic player, you've got a player that's going to offer you a lot, and some Arsenal fans coming in and saying, it's an absolute waste of money. So, really interesting to see the divide in opinion, of course. Pastor the Muppet says, could have got Malcolm for less. We could have. However, again, no Premier League experience. Didn't seem like he wanted to move to the club whatsoever. Just throwing it out there, but you're absolutely right, we could have got him for less. Whiskey says, Satan Arsenal fans signing Sideshow Bob. Toffee Talk says, excited but worried about the centre-back, and we can put so much pressure on the kid up front. Come on, you Blues. Yeah, there was always going to be pressure on Moise Keane. I think it became quite apparent on Sunday afternoon that he was going to be our only centre-forward signing, of course. We've got Moise Keane, we've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin. However, realistically, we've brought one of the most promising, one of the best young players in Europe in to fill that centre-forward void. So, obviously it's not going to be an instant fix. He's not going to be able to sort the issues out straight away, but there's a lot of positivity going into the future. Mikey says, for centre-backs, where are we? We should have had the plan A, B and C. Should have been at least one we were guaranteed to get. I agree 100%. Paul says, did we get a centre-back? We didn't. Unfortunately, not as of yet anyway, and we're not aware that a transfer sheet has been submitted for one either. Good Soul says, think the fact that Corey can play right back lessens the urgency for Brands and Silva, but obviously we still need centre-back. I think you're talking about Gabaman. Gabaman can play at centre-half, of course, and that doesn't sort of solve the problem, but it makes it a little bit less of a stress, I suppose, for Marco Silva. However, in my opinion, Jean-Philippe Gbamin has been brought in as a number 6, as a defensive midfielder, and that's where he should play throughout the majority of this season. What we don't want is Gbamin to play the first 4 or 5 games at defensive midfield, be absolutely fantastic. One of the centre-halves get injured, and then he has to play the next 6 months at centre-back then, and then, you're bringing in the likes of a Fabian Delph to play in a Disagonagay's place, when Marco Silva very clearly said that Delph wasn't a replacement for the Disagonagay. Pastor Muppet says DCL goal machine up front at Palace. At least Zaha can't play. Yeah, that is the only positive really coming out of the Zaha situation today. Good source says Gbamin, yeah. Paul says DCL at Socius. Fair enough, that's your opinion. Where are we? I've just lost where I am. Deck says Gbamin can play at centre half. He certainly can. Scott says Gbamin and Delph can play centre back if need be. That is true. Mikey says Zaha would have got the fans excited to whether the priority should have been the top centre half. I agree, 100%. Spot on. Top comment. Simon says you. Rabbi says Holgate, I don't think it's Premier League. He's Premier League quality. I agree at the minute. Deck says Mustafi for 30 million. Would you buy him? No, I just don't think he's worth that. Toffee Talk says lol. Bob Stevens says Camden, Eminem, I believe did say and get. I believe that's Marco Marshall did try and get a centre-back, i.e. Bournemouth. It was too inflated the prices. Yeah, there was a rumour that we were in for Nathan Aki towards the back end of today. However, they want £70 million for him, and he's absolutely not worth that. Dex says he's quality, mate. Fair enough. I disagree, if you're talking about Mustafi, of course. Paul says, is Dave Watson available? If only. Simon says, this is the whole point of the youth system, and them under-23s playing alongside the Bean and O'Keen could make these kids. We are where we are. This is where they're going to get the chance to step up. I agree exactly, and it is where Toffee Talk says also give Gibbo a chance. I dare say the likes of Lewis Gibson and Morgan Feeney may get an opportunity this season. However, I would have liked a more experienced centre-back, somebody that's played in the Premier League before, somebody that we know is a guaranteed player that can come in and have an impact. However, we haven't got that, of course. Scott says, but we have replaced Lukaku at last. Exactly. Anthony says they must see something in these kids. Got to get your chance at some point. Maybe they have got it covered. To lose 3 that they knew about and to not have others, surely they are not that thick. Anthony also says I agree with that as well, and let's hope that Marco Silva and Marcel Brands have got the faith in the youth players, and let's hope that they're good enough to step in. Anthony also says 5 mil off the Lukaku deal to Inter. Nice. Yes, exactly. We will take £5 million from Lukaku's transfer to Inter Milan. Jeffrey says should not be worrying over this. This is going to be a great season. Come on, you Blues. I'm as positive as you. I am as positive as you. Rabbi says Morgan Feeney is my cousin. Just a random fact I wanted to say. Fair enough, good stuff. Pastor of Muppet says back to reality. Zaha will move to a top side next year for less than Everton offered, and Everton continue to buy cast-offs from Arsenal and United. Fair enough, you can see there's a little bit of frustration going on. I think Zaha's very frustrated, and I do think he will move very soon. Ahab Dozaman Chai, sorry if I've absolutely butchered that name. And if he gets proper game time, you're getting yourself a player who will become far better than Zaha as soon as the season goes. I assume that's on about Iwobi. Fair enough. Pastor the Muppet says LMAO. Shan says, I honestly think we can sign by Zaha again in the December transfer window if we're not happy with Iwobi's performance. I think we'll probably go back in for him, if I'm being honest with you. However, I dare say there'll be other teams in for him as well, and Palace again will be even harder to deal with in January than they are at the minute. Shan says, I honestly, no, I've just read that one out. Gabe says, what happened with Sanson? Was that just fake news? I don't know. There wasn't anything sort of solid coming out of that. I dare say it was probably just an in the know who's decided to throw in a transfer rumour again. Deke says, think so. Natty says, Zaha could leave Crystal Palace for a foreign club in the next month. He could, and that again is quite likely because it looks like he's desperate to leave. Ivan says, confident on a good season. I am. Rabbi says, do you think Tom Davies will get any spotlight this season? I don't know. Maybe he'll come in and adopt a central midfield role if Gbamin is sort of pushed to centre half. I'm not too sure. Kevin says, get a few early wins under our belt and we can really push for the top 5. Decent window for us except the centre back issue. I agree. I really do agree. Deke says, to be honest, a kid that I rate as being cheap from Arsenal, quality youngster and has a lot of potential. Everton should really go in for him, and he is a centre back. Maybe he was on Marcel Brands' list, but it's a little bit too late now. Simon Toll says, can't get Bill Kenwright to play centre-half. No one will get past Big Bill. Yeah, that's true. And Rabbi says, also, do you think Ellis Sims will break through in the following season as a young, promising player? I don't. He's very young. He's still, I think, 18 years old. I think he'll play the majority of this season in the under-23s. And then I think he will probably get his breakthrough within the next couple of years, but I don't think it will be this season. Anyway, moving on now to ins and outs sort of throughout the whole transfer window. I think we can all agree that today was disappointing. However, I want to talk about the window as a whole. Obviously, in terms of ins, we've got Alex Iwobi, who is yet to be confirmed, but we pretty much know that's going to happen. Moise Kean, Jean-Philippe Gbamin, Djibril Sidibe, Andre Gomez, Jonas Leisel and Fabian Delph. And in terms of outs, we've got the likes of Lookman, Garner, McCarthy, Vlasic, and then the loans for Pennington, Dow, Virginia, Williams, Joe Williams, Anthony Robinson, of course, leaving on a permanent transfer as well. So in terms of the whole transfer window, listen, just to summarise this team, I think it's been a positive transfer window. I really do. The centre-back issue is disappointing. It is disappointing, but you know, maybe Marcel Brands and Marco Silva see something that we don't. And I've said this from the start of the transfer window, and I'll say it again. Have faith and have trust in Marcel Brands. Have faith and have trust in Marco Silva. I do, and I hope you all do as well. Yes, it's disappointing, and yes, it might be a massive, massive mistake. Nobody's perfect, and this might be a massive, massive mistake from Marcel Brands as to not bringing in a centre-back. However, like we said, we've got Gbamin who can play centre-back, and we've got young players that may need their or get their opportunity to break through. I think in terms of up front striker issues, we've brought in a striker, a really, really good, promising young centre forward. We've brought in a replacement for Adissa Garner-Gay as well, which we knew was needed. We've brought in competition at right back, which is really, really important. It will help step Seamus's game up. Of course, we've brought in Andre Gomez, who was a massive transfer. We've brought in a backup goalkeeper who is better than the backup goalkeeper that we had, and we've also brought in a winning, a Premier League winning player in Fabian Delph, who's going to instill that winning mentality into the club. And we've also, like you said, in Sidibe, we've brought in a World Cup winner. So we've brought in 2 serial winners into the club that are going to instill that winning mentality, that are going to make sure that if we're 2-1 down in a big, big game in the Premier League, we're not just going to give up. We're going to go and we're going to push until the very, very end. In terms of the out, like I said, Ademola Lookman didn't feature much last season. Nikola Vlasic obviously spent the entire season on loan. The big, big, massive one is Adissa Garner-Gay. We're going to miss Adissa Garner-Gay massively. However, it was pretty much apparent from the start of the transfer window that he was going to want his move away. We brought a replacement in Gbamin quite quickly. So we will miss Adissa Garner-Gay, of course. It is really, really disappointing. It is a little bit of a knock-on when you have a look at the transfer window, when you have a look at deadline day. It is a little bit disappointing. However, we pretty much knew that that deal was going to happen as well. So in terms of the transfer window as a whole, listen, personally, I think it's been positive. I'm disappointed that we haven't brought a centre-half in. I'm disappointed that, of course, we didn't get the deal for Wilfried Zaha done, but really, really interesting quote from Paul Joyce, like we spoke about earlier. Really, really interesting deal for Alex Iwobi as well. I do genuinely think he can bring a lot to the football club. I think he's a good creative player, young, still got a lot to learn as well, and he's not as exciting as Wilfried Zaha. Maybe he wouldn't offer us as much as Wilfried Zaha would, but it doesn't mean he's not, an exciting player. It doesn't mean that he's not going to offer something to the squad. If you're enjoying the team so far, please do hit the like button. It would mean a massive, massive amount to me. And subscribe if you're new to the channel as well. Toffee Talk says I would really appreciate if you could take a look at my channel and let me know how I can improve. You're doing a good job. Thank you very, very much, mate. Everybody after the stream, go and have a look at Toffee Talk's channel. Go and give him some constructive criticism. Give him some nice comments as well. I'll definitely check that out tonight, mate. Thank you very much for your words. I'll definitely check that one out. Deek says start a football manager career with Everton or FIFA 20. When FIFA 20 comes out, I will probably do an Everton football career, Everton career mode. Sorry, so that's something in the pipeline, of course. Kevin says any centre backs on a free transfer available. Not that I'm aware so far, but, some players could come up, of course. Steve Brown says, players we've brought allow us to change formation for each game. Exactly, and that allows us to be dynamic, and that allows us to ensure that teams can't plan for what they're going to get, which in turn allows us to be harder to beat, of course. So, that's a positive. Anthony says, could see more out yet due to the European window not finishing until September. Morgan, Yannick, etc. could still leave. Yeah, that's another point I wanted to bring out, of course. Players can still leave the football club. The European transfer window has not ended yet. It doesn't end until September, again, which means Wilfried Zaha could move to a European club, and again means players could leave Everton, the likes of Yannick Bolasie, Morgan Schneiderlin, as Anthony pointed out there, as well as other players that have been rumoured with a move abroad, Henry Onyekuru as well. However, I'm not too sure whether we'd entertain those deals purely because of obviously we can't bring in any players to replace those players now. However, the likes of Henry Onyekuru, if a deal gets broken for him, I dare say he will be sold. Good Soul says, did McCarthy only go for 3 million? Disappointing if so. We don't know yet. It's a strange one. BBC reporting 3 mil, Sky reporting 8 mil. It's a really, really disappointing one. It's a really, really confusing one. Sorry, so we're not completely sure yet, but it's between 3 and 10, let's say that. Just got a notification through on my phone actually that Sheffield United United have agreed a loan deal with Everton for Mo Besic, so that's another out for this season. Mo Besic going to Sheffield United on loan. It'll give him some Premier League experience, obviously, gets him off the wage book for this season as well. And yeah, there's another out for you to settle in on this disappointing transfer deadline day. Rabbi says, I feel like we could have got a lot more money out of Gay. Yeah, I understand that. I think he's worth a lot more to us. When you look at what Crystal Palace are demanding for Wilfried Zaha, I do agree. However, 29 years old, nearly 30 years old, £30 million, it ain't that bad, is it? It ain't that bad. Jack Robinson says, we're fucked with 3 centre-backs. Iwobi is a pot signing, but Averdi's a cam too. Yeah, he can play cam, he can play midfield, he can play on the wing. So I think he's a good signing. I do think he's a good signing. The centre-back situation is a little bit disappointing, of course. However, what can we do? Maybe Marco Silva and Marcel Brands are preparing to bring some players through the academy, or are preparing to maybe use Jean-Philippe Gbamin as a centre-half for a little bit of this season. Nicky says, I will be signed. I hope so. I haven't seen anything come through yet, but it does look like he will sign for Everton Football Club. Deke says, yeah, Jack, he is a cam. He plays cam for Arsenal. Josh says, today was so disappointing. I agree, Josh. And Deke also says, sometimes an inside forward about Alex Iwobi. Yeah. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's team. If you have enjoyed, please do leave a like. 38 people currently in the stream. If you get the stream to 20 likes before we end, that will be massively appreciated. If you're new to the channel as well and you haven't subscribed, we do streams at least 3 days a week. We've been doing them every single day this week because, of course, it's been quite manic, other than today, which was surprisingly quiet. We'll be back tomorrow live at 6:15 for the game preview to, of course, our first Premier League game of the season against Crystal Palace on Saturday. We'll be going through our predicted starting 11. We'll be talking about the squad, of course, which will include Alex Iwobi. He won't be able to play, but of course, he'll be in the conversation. So don't forget to join us at 6:15 tomorrow for the live game preview to that game. It's the opening game of the season. It's really exciting. It's something to look forward to. And let's stay positive now, Blues. It's been a disappointing day today. It really has. I don't think anybody could disagree with that. It's disappointing that we haven't broken a deal for Wilfried Zaha. It's disappointing that we haven't signed a centre-half. However, having said all of that, we've had a decent transfer window, in my opinion. We've brought in a striker. We've brought in a replacement for Gay. We've brought in competition at right back. And we've brought in a decent attacker in Alex Iwobi as well. So let's stay positive, of course. We were all positive a week ago. We were all positive before today. So let's keep that positivity running, obviously, going into Saturday's game. It's quite clear that Wilfried Zaha won't feature on Saturday, and for me that takes out a massive part of Crystal Palace's attack and presence and gives us a massive chance of winning that game of football. So I dare say, if we go to Palace on Saturday, if we get a decent win, I think that all will sort of be forgiven at the minute until one of the centre-halves gets injured. But anyway, that's going to do it for today. Like I said, don't forget to join us at 6:15 tomorrow for another live team. Please hit the like button if you have enjoyed today's team. It really does mean a massive amount to me. Rabbi says, bye Rabbi, thank you very much for getting involved in the comments. Good Soul also says, nice one, Cam. Thank you very much, Good Soul, for getting involved. Thank you to everybody else as well in the live comments and watching live. If you're watching it as a YouTube video afterwards, please do leave your comments in the comment section down below, and we'll be going through them for the rest of the night. I really want to hear what your thoughts are on the transfer window as a whole. I think it's quite clear we're all disappointed about today, but what are your thoughts on the transfer window as a whole? Do you think it's been a success? Do you think it's been a disappointment because we haven't signed a centre-half? If you had to give it a rating out of 10, what would you give it? So massive thank you once again for everybody for watching. The support over the last week on the teams has been absolutely mind-blowing. Everybody that's new, thank you very much for joining the Mighty Blue Army. I've never called it that before, but I'm going to call it now. And if you've been here from sort of day one, thank you. Or from, few months back, thank you all very much for your continued support, of course. I hope you're enjoying this team. I hope you're enjoying the content. Like I said, it doesn't stop here. We're back tomorrow at 6:15 for the live game preview. Should be a really interesting one. Should be a really interesting game to talk about, of course. Shan says, would you keep Phil Jagielka now knowing Zuma is not coming, or do you think Jagielka is too slow? I'd have kept him just purely to have that cover. However, I don't think he's good enough to play in the Premier League, and I don't think he's good enough to play week in, week out. But now that we're desperate for centre-halves, I would have kept him. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's team. A massive thank you for watching. Please hit the like button if you have enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Like I said, don't forget to join us at 6:15 tomorrow for the game preview to the Crystal Palace game. Should be a really interesting one. Once again, thank you very much for all the support recently. It means a lot to me. Don't forget to go and follow us over on Twitter at MightyBluesYT to keep up to date with all of the latest Everton news. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already to keep up to date with all of the news over on YouTube. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. It's been a pleasure, as per usual. Don't forget to join us tomorrow. Please leave a like if you have enjoyed, and I'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues.